Alright, for this video I want to go through a sample form 4562, Depreciation and Amortization, and this is going to be a 2023 example for an S corporation that wants to claim the Section 179 expense. So we've got the full 1120S return here together with the 4562. So I'll cover the 4562 obviously, and then all the other schedules and forms that go along with it. So we'll look at the K1, we'll look at the 179 limitation worksheets, and then we'll cover all those elements. So we'll cover all of that, and then I've also got one slide here covering just some background on the 179 deduction, the bonus depreciation rules, and the details on the fact pattern itself. So if we start with just the bonus depreciation so we can kind of compare these two, bonus depreciation 179 kind of do the same thing, right? It provides a large deduction, but there are some differences. So with bonus depreciation, you are deducting a percentage of the cost of the property, right? So in 2023, the bonus depreciation deduction is 80% of the cost or your basis in the property. Now, it used to be 100%, but it's starting to phase out. It's phasing out by 20% per year. So for 2023, it's 80%. 2024, you can deduct 60%, and then 40 and 20 until it's zero. Now, most property is going to be eligible for bonus, so long as its useful life is under 20 years, and there's some special rules, obviously, for different types of property and vehicle limits in particular. Now, with 179 deductions, the limit isn't a percentage of the property, it's a dollar amount. So Section 179 limit for 2023 is $1.16 million of expenditures, and this amount actually can be phased out as well, depending on how much property you have placed into service. And so we'll get a look at that later on the form. Now, the Section 179 deduction is limited to your taxable income. So the bonus depreciation, you can claim bonus and it can create a loss for your business. That's okay. No problems there. With Section 179, it's not so generous, right? So with 179, if you claim the expense, you cannot be in such a way where it pushes your business into a net loss, right? So you can't use the 179 deduction to create these losses. And in contrast, bonus depreciation can. You can already be in a loss and then claim bonus depreciation. That's okay. But with 179, it's not the case. Now, the 179 deduction is a separately stated K1 item, and it's because of these tests, right? So we test at the entity level. So if the business, does it have enough profit to be able to claim it? And then the shareholder, when they're doing their Form 1040, they apply the test again to see do they have enough income to be able to claim this Section 179 expense. Now, companies can claim both at the same time on the same property, right? So generally that 179 expense would be applied first up till you hit that limit, and then you can take the bonus depreciation later. Now, in this example, we've got a manufacturing business that sells widgets, and so they needed to buy some CNC machines, so they bought one for $42,500, and the second one was for $25,900. So they're looking to write these off as quickly as possible. So the company is profitable, so they're going to be able to claim either the 179 or that bonus depreciation. So in their case, if they have enough profits, the Section 179 deduction makes sense because they can write off 100%. If they decided not to use that and just went with the bonus, they would only be able to write off 80%, right? They would get an 80% deduction. So let's have a look at the return and then see how all these elements get carried over here. So we've got the 4562. It's 2 pages. We're going to be working just with part 1 here. If you have bonus depreciation, you would have entries in part 2, and then if it was listed property that you're claiming bonus depreciation on, you would have the amount entered in line 25. So line 25, column H for the bonus depreciation deduction. But in our case, we don't have any of that type of property. We just have these 2 CNC machines, and so we're trying to claim the 179 deduction on those items. So if we start at the top here, the maximum amount of 179 expense for the year, this is 2023, is the 1.16 million. Now the total cost of the property placed into service are the items we've listed down here on line 6. So we have CNC machine 1 and the cost CNC machine 2 and the cost $25,900, and it's 100% being used for business purposes, so we don't have to reduce our cost basis by that personal use component. So we're just using the 42.5 and the 25.9 there. Now we don't have any listed property right on line 7 because we don't have any vehicles or other automobiles that we're claiming 179 expense. So these are just the two items that we're going to claim the 179 deduction on. Now, if you have more than two items, you can attach a statement and then reference the statement. So you could put something to the effect of see statement 1, and then you'll have a statement 1 that'll list all the different properties and their cost basis and elected cost items. So on line 2, their total cost of our 179 property placed in service is at $68,400. Now the threshold cost, this is a cap on the amount of property that you can place in a service before you have to start reducing the amount of 179 deduction you can claim. So in other words, let's say if you put in $3 million of property that was eligible for this 179 deduction, you would have to reduce that by the excess. You would have to reduce your 1.16 by the excess of 3 million over 2.89. But in our case here, clearly we're well below these thresholds, right? We're claiming we have eligible property of 68,400, which is well below. So on line 4, we don't have any reduction in our limitation. So the dollar limitation for the year on line 5 here, we subtract line 4 from line 1, and we're left with the remaining, the initial 1.16 million. 179 deduction that we can claim. Now the total elected costs of the section 179 property, we've added column C, lines 6 and 7, right? So line 6, line 7, we're left with the $68,400. The tentative deduction is the smaller of line 5 or line 8. Right, so the smaller of line 5 or 8 is 68,400. So line 9 is simply the 68,400. Now the carryover from last year, if we had any, would be reported on line 10. The carryover would occur if you didn't have enough taxable income to be able to claim the 179 deduction. Right, that's why this limitation is in place. So to the extent you didn't have enough income, you can still claim that 179 expense, but the amount that is ineligible would be rolled forward to subsequent periods. In this example, we don't have anything carried over from last year because it's the first year of the business, right? So we don't have any carryover on line 10. And so on line 11, we enter the business income of the S corporation to figure out whether we have enough income to meet this limitation. So the income in this case, normally you're just looking at the taxable income of the business, right? So it would be, you're looking at your line 1 ordinary income or loss. However, there is a unique worksheet that goes along with S corporations where we use a business income limit worksheet to have certain adjustments. So in this case, we have the dollar limitation for the year. We have our ordinary business income or loss, so that's the line 2 or the line 1 amount from the K1. So if we look at the K1 here, there's our K1 amount, 503,169, 503,169, and that's coming from page 1 of the 1120S as well, right? So 503,169. So you notice here that the 503,169, we get the benefit of adding back the compensation paid to any shareholder employees. So the managing shareholder in the S corporation was paid $70,000 in wages, so we can add that amount back. And so it gives us a boost here, right? So our adjusted ordinary income for purposes of that section 179 limitation is the $573,169, right? So we're better off than if we just use the page 1 ordinary income or loss. So we've got 573,169. And so the section 179 expense deduction on line 12, add lines 9 and 10, but don't enter more than line 11. So that's where the income limitation would come in place. Now that we can clearly see we've got enough income, it means we can take the full $68,400 as the Section 179 deduction. So once we have the $68,400, that amount is not reported as depreciation expense on page 1. So normally line 14 here, you would have your depreciation expense. That is not reported here on line 14. It's reported instead on the Schedule K1 on line 11. So the Schedule K1, line 11 deductions, we have a Section 179 deduction flowing through from the 4562, and that's reported as the $68,400 amount. So when the shareholders look at their K1s, they have to separately enter these, right? So if we look at this example here, this is John Smith, who was the shareholder that was compensated the $70,000. You can see he's got his allocation of the ordinary income or loss, and then a separately stated item on line 11 for his share of the Section 179 deduction. All right, so that covers it for this tutorial on the 4562 and Section 179. I hope that was helpful. Obviously, any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. I tried to get to as many of those as I can. And as always, I appreciate you watching the videos, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thank you.